Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the DEA Tech Tuesday, where we discuss technology and innovation related to the digital money. If you like this format, please share it with your network and make sure to subscribe to our channel to receive our content. And I'd like to start by thanking our supporting members and say that at the end of the episode, we'll have time for questions from the audience, so please you can post them in the YouTube chat box. We are pleased and honored to have today with us Greg Scullard, Executive Director EMEA at Hashgraph. Thank you so much for being here today, and we will discuss the open source Hedera Stable Coin Studio. Stable Coin Studio is an open source SDK that makes it easy for Web3 stablecoin platforms, institutional issuers, enterprises, and payment providers to build stablecoin applications on the Hedera network. So thank you so much, Greg, for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tamara. So let me just share my desktop very quickly. So thanks everyone for joining us today, whether you're listening live or listening to recording later on. Much appreciate the time you're dedicating to us. So Stablecoin Studio was born out of an idea or an ethos, which was to accelerate the time it takes to discover what a stablecoin might look like on the Hedera network. And the analogy may be that in software development today, and particularly even more so in blockchain or Web3, building a solution can be, feel much like trying to build a bicycle from parts, from wheel, saddle, and so on and so forth. And then when you've read all the documentation and the assembly manual, which may or may not exist, you have to, assemble your bicycle, take it for a ride. And it's only after a long period of time of building that you may realize that the bicycle isn't quite what you expected, and you may need to change some things. So what we've tried to do with Stablecoin Studio is provide an experience that's more similar to picking up a bicycle at a bike shop, taking it for a ride, and then maybe coming back and suggesting minor improvements that could be made so that you can enjoy it fully. So with that, I'm going to start on a quick introduction to the Hedera network, which is a leaderless proof-of-stake public network. We call it a distributed ledger. Some people call it a blockchain. Although we don't use blockchain technology, we use a consensus algorithm within the Hedera network called Hashgraph, which is fast, energy efficient, and low cost. The network itself is governed by what we call the Hedera Governing Council, which is made up of up to 39 Fortune 500 organizations. There are some non-profit participants there as well, such as universities, and the industries that are covered by the Governing Council cover banking, finance, aerospace, telecommunications, Web3 companies with exchanges and oracles, and so on and so forth. So it is a multi-industry governance level. Those governing council members are also distributed around the world. So we have geographic distribution, and they are term limited. So we call this time-based decentralization, whereby the governing council today will look very different in 3 or 4 years from now, with a rotation of council members. The governing council looks after all aspects of operating the network. That is the technical roadmap, the management of the coins, the marketing, the regulatory and legal position of the network, and so on and so forth. So they together represent Hedera. On top of the consensus, we have different services, and three represented here are the consensus service, the token service, and a smart contract service. The smart contract service is equivalent to what you find on Ethereum. So for the more technically minded here, it's the same EVM as Ethereum, on which you can run Solidity smart contracts. And using one or more of these services together, you can build applications across a wide variety of different use cases. And of course, those applications are then used by anyone, from individuals all the way down to devices in the context of IoT. Stablecoin Studio is, as I said, a leg up, if you want, or a springboard that enables you to deploy a stablecoin on the Hedera network, at least for testing purposes or discovery purposes, in minutes and hours and not days or weeks. It enables you to explore the speed and efficiency of the network and what you can do with stablecoins on the Hedera network. So we've tried to make it as easy to deploy and operate as possible. We've also built in some capabilities to support compliance, and we'll talk about those later on. We've integrated proof of reserve, which is arguably a must-have for stablecoins nowadays. And we've also worked on integrating or pre-integrating custody and KYC providers, again, to try and speed up the time to market and reduce the burden on issuers when it comes to integrating with all of the different component parts that you require to operate a stablecoin. In terms of use cases, we haven't settled on anything in particular. You can use Stablecoin Studio from cross-border remittance all the way to enterprise budget tokenization, which is one use case we explored with two of our council members. You'll see that the efficiency of the network enables micropayments, and by micropayments, we mean a payment that could be as low as a tenth of a US dollar cent, and still making that payment, financially viable for the end users or the consumers of the stablecoin. We've built it for stablecoins issuers, of course, but not any particular type of stablecoin issuer, whether you're in Web3 or in an institution or a bank or a payment provider. You may find the Stablecoin Studio is suitable for your deployment. Ultimately, the regulatory and requirements around governance of the stablecoin may differ between the different types of issuers, but the fundamental technology remains the same, and that's very much what Stablecoin Studio brings to the table. So in order to build with Stablecoin Studio, we've provided three component parts or three key elements. An SDK, which Tamara alluded to earlier, which essentially abstracts a lot of the underlying complexity of dealing with Hedera as a blockchain or public distributed ledger. We've built a command line interface which uses the SDK so that you can operate a stablecoin using a command line interface. And of course, command line interfaces don't demo particularly well. We've also built a UI or user interface, which also uses the SDK, which enables you to do everything you can do with the command line interface, and gives you immediate visualization of the different operations you can perform on the stablecoin using Stablecoin Studio. The application itself is not meant to be taken into production, but it can certainly be used as a reference implementation for somebody wanting to integrate the SDK into existing user interface capabilities. And if you want to try it out without installing any software, except for a wallet on our testnet, then you can head to stablecoinstudio.com. This is where the application is hosted for you to try and issue your stablecoin very, very, very quickly. We also leveraged some capabilities that the Hedera network provides across the different services. So if you recall earlier, I alluded to three services: the Hedera Consensus Service, the Hedera Token Service, and Hedera Smart Contracts. And so the idea with the Hedera Token Service is that you can issue tokens on the Hedera network, fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens, without relying on smart contracts at all. So that means that non-Solidity developers can very quickly create stable coins or tokens on the Hedera network using the Hedera Token Service, which is native and very efficient. On the other hand, we have the traditional smart contracts, which is how you would deploy a stable coin or a token on an EVM-like network, such as Ethereum or others. But with that smart contracts, you get less in terms of throughput. The cost of operations or transactions are slightly higher than they would be with a native service. So we were faced with a dilemma or a choice, right? Do we use the token service or do we use smart contracts? And it turns out that Hedera's implementation of both its EVM and its native token service are interoperable to a point whereby we can deploy a stablecoin or a token as a native token. So we get very high throughput and very low costs. But we can delegate some of the management of the token to a smart contract where we can implement more complex roles, such as proof of reserve, which we'll look at later on. So this hybrid model, which is on the right-hand side, is the best of both worlds. We've got smart contracts for granular governance, role-based administration. But as you can see, the smart contracts are for an equivalent for a stablecoin that would be built purely on smart contracts. The cost of transferring the token from one user to another is about 50 times greater than it is with the token service. Throughput of the transactions is also about 50 times less than it is on the Hedera token service. So what we are able to do with this hybrid model of a native token paired up with smart contracts is get all of the granular governance, the role-based administration, and still leverage the very high throughput and very low cost of the token service. And we foresee a world where stable coins are used for activities other than a store of value for DeFi. When you may have made a profit in DeFi, trading some coins, and you want to secure those profits into a stable coin, whether it's USDC or other, and then reuse those stable coins in the future. So you don't want, for another DeFi trade, you don't want to go back to your bank account and then have to deposit funds again, because that causes friction and adds time and delays. This is very much why stable coins are used today. We foresee a time when you may be paying with stable coins because of their efficiency to view an article on a web page, or maybe to pay for streaming a video per second or per 30 seconds or otherwise. And then it makes sense to be able to pay very, very small amounts, like 1/100th of a cent or 1/10th of a cent, cost effectively, which isn't the case if you're paying 5 cents necessarily for a smart contract call. And also, we need very high throughput. So the hybrid model, which we implemented as a reference implementation here in Stablecoin Studio, like I said earlier, is the best of both worlds. We get the speed and low-cost operation of native tokens with all of the management capabilities offered by smart contracts. So an example workflow here might be that if I'm an issuer or administrator of a stablecoin, I will use either the web interface that we've built or the command line interface, which both of which interact with the SDK that we've created. And that SDK transparently communicates with either a smart contract or the native token service. Um, it will communicate with a smart contract to manage all of the administrative side of the tokens, and it will communicate directly with the native token service uh, for um, uh, for the more kind of like transfers, the simple operations that don't necessarily require um, role-based access. On the left-hand side, we have a description of what proof of reserve might look like. So with proof of reserve, we integrate with an Oracle, and Stablecoin Studio implemented Chainlink's proof of reserve contract interface. If you've chosen to deploy proof of reserve, then through an Oracle, you would update a smart contract on the Hedera network with the balance of the reserve account for the stablecoin whenever that balance changes. Um, and then inside of the smart contract on Hedera, which is responsible for governing the minting of the stablecoin, then the minting process will check that whenever we mint tokens, the new circulating supply for the stablecoin doesn't exceed the amount that is held in reserve. So all of that is, pre-integrated. Of course, you have to integrate the Oracle into your banking system, but essentially the capability for proof of reserve exists out of the box. The end user of the stablecoin don't need to worry themselves with smart contracts at all. They are on in the fast lane, so to speak, and they can transfer stable coins to each other for a hundredth of a US dollar. And they can do so, of course, very, very efficiently. They can provide allowances or grant or revoke allowances to other people to spend tokens on their behalf. And we've also implemented, or we also support KYC within the stablecoin studio, so that if you want your stablecoin to be subject to KYC, you can restrict access to the stablecoin to KYC users only. And many of these things are optional, so you can deploy without proof of reserve. You can deploy without KYC. You can deploy without the ability to freeze, pause, or wipe. All of these options are up to you when you issue your stablecoin first time. As well as building all of these smart contracts and all these capabilities for role-based access, we've pre-integrated with a number of key partners or key components that we believe are necessary in order to operate a stablecoin in a responsible manner. And the first is proof of reserve for Treasury, as I said. So we have pre-integrated the Chainlink sort of recommended way of doing proof of reserve. We are working with a number of our custody provider partners to have them pre-integrated into Stablecoin Studio as well. So if you wanted to use a custody provider that we support today, beyond setting up a commercial relationship with that custody provider and obtaining some API keys, that's really it. You put the API keys into Stablecoin Studio's configuration, and you're good to go. You don't have to write software to make this integration work. And this is very much the same with KYC and AML services. We've worked with sort of know your transaction providers, people who will scan the transaction history to highlight particular entities that may be transacting or shouldn't be transacting with the token. We're in the process of integrating a KYC partner into the solution as well. So that yeah, the Studio supports KYC out of the box. So some of the names of the custody providers that we're working with, as well as KYC or Know Your Transaction providers. We have some pre-integration with other infrastructure providers. So some of the components of the solution, like persistent mirror nodes that sort of persist transaction history, are available from alternative providers. And we've also audited the smart contracts, and we've worked with OpenZeppelin to integrate Defender into the solution, so that you can set up kind of alerts on the smart contract that manages a stablecoin that you issued, and those alerts can be, floated up to Slack, Discord, email, SMS, and all sorts of things. So you could put some monitoring on, the quantity of tokens that is being minted, and if that quantity is above, maybe 10% of supply at any one time, then that could trigger an alert thanks to OpenZeppelin Defender. All of this is done. You don't need to, you don't need to integrate it yourself. I've mentioned a number of times already that the fees for transacting stablecoins on the Hedera network are very low, and we can see it here at 1/100th of a US dollar, 1,000. I always forget 1,000th of a US dollar. One of the features of the Hedera network is that transaction fees are expressed in US dollars. They're paid for in cryptocurrency, which is our cryptocurrency, HBAR, at the current or at the exchange rate at the time of your transaction being executed. And Hedera is one of the, I think maybe the only network that does so. There may be another one. I'm not 100% sure, but we don't have a fee market for transaction fees. If you are running 1,000 transactions a day and they're all stablecoin transfers, it will cost you $1. And all you need to do is buy $1 worth of HBAR, in the morning to pay for your transactions all day long. Assuming, of course, that the price of HBAR doesn't vary drastically in that day, you can far more accurately budget for the operation and use of a service or a solution on the Hedera network because of that denomination of transaction fees in US dollars and not in native cryptocurrency. So if you've interacted with CFOs in the past, then you'll know that asking for a budget that ranges from 100,000 to 1 million for your transaction fees will not go down very well with them. With Hedera, you don't have to have that conversation. If you know what transactions you're going to run and how many of them you're going to run, you can give them a very accurate budget estimation. So the creation of stablecoin up to $2.7. Minting is just above 8,000th of a US dollar. The transfer is 1,000th. You can transfer as well through the smart contract, which is associated with the stablecoin. That's 5 cents if you want to use the stablecoin. And you can see all of the other management operations are extremely cheap and fixed. The smart contracts that we've built along with, or that we include as part of Stablecoin Studio have been audited by CertiK. There were no major issues highlighted, or if there were, they have been fixed. I'll sort of invite you to look at the security assessment. We have already worked with a number of issuers, and there has been more since this slide was put together, with issuers or potential issuers. We have a stablecoin being issued in Australia, which is leveraging Stablecoin Studio. There's a stablecoin being issued in the Philippines, and we have a number of other stablecoin initiatives building on the Hedera network, either on top of Stablecoin Studio or as a result of Stablecoin Studio being, tried out and discovered by those projects. I invite you to check out stablecoinstudio.com if you want to see the demo or to play with the online demo. We have a GitHub repository where all of this is available. All the source code is available. We can put you in touch with our foundations, the Hashgraph Foundation and the Hashgraph Association for grants if you have a project that requires a grant and acceleration. We have a number of partners who are familiar with Stablecoin Studio who can help you through the architectural design, through modifications that you may need to, that may be required to Stablecoin Studio or any development on the side of Stablecoin Studio. And hedera.com/stablecoin-studio has a lot of tutorials, video demonstrations, and much more information than I'm able to share in the short time that we have together today. So please consult those different websites and places. That's it. Thank you very much. I look forward to the questions that you may have asked online while I was talking. And with that, I'll hand back to Tamara.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg, for the explanation, the presentation. Yeah, super interesting. You already, covered many questions. So good presentation. So about, proof of reserve functionality, KYC, also some, the fee structure. But we do have one here that it's what considerations have been made to ensure scalability as stablecoin usage increases globally?
So it's a great question. So the Hedera network was built to be scalable from the very beginning. You may have seen on the slides we are capable of processing 10,000 transactions per second, and this is a cap that we have at the moment. While the network is 6.5 years old, 6 years old, we still consider ourselves in a growth phase, and we are nowhere near 10,000 transactions per second on the network yet. But it's a cap that we have put on the utilization of the network today. Technically, we can go higher, and this is in a single shard. So we have designs for the network to shard, meaning that we can create additional networks that would run in parallel with each other. Each shard would be able to support 10,000 transactions per second or more. And this sharding does not compromise the security or efficiency of the network in any way. So we consider Hedera to be infinitely scalable in the sense that when more throughput is required, we can create an additional shard and add 10,000 or more transactions per second to the network.
Great. The next one, it's in what ways does Stablecoin Studio accommodate custom stablecoin features or governance models for issuers? So you mentioned that you have this optionality for the functions. Yeah, so maybe you can elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, so it's a great question again, and something which I forgot to mention. So in the governance layer of the stablecoin being a smart contract, so essentially when you issue a native token on the Hedera network, you provide it with some optional features. So can I mint the token? Can I mint or burn the token? Is it subject to KYC? Can I freeze it? Can I pause it? And so on and so forth. So if I take minting as an example, we delegate the authority to mint the native token to a smart contract instead of delegating it to somebody with the appropriate private key. So normally I would say, Tamara is my controller and Tamara is able to mint my token. And that gives Tamara unlimited power to mint my token up to the maximum supply that I may have created. So there are no controls in many ways other than Tamara's good sense to prevent Tamara from minting up to the circulating supply, overnight or in a few seconds. So that's great in most cases, but what we've done here is to delegate, and again, this is optional, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can delegate minting authority to a smart contract. And the example smart contract that we have in Stablecoin Studio implements a role, which is a minter role. So tomorrow would have to be approved to mint the token. And that minter role or that approval can come with a cap. So as an administrator, I could say I could provide Tamara with the ability to mint the token, but no more than 1,000 tokens, or no more than 1 million tokens, and all subject to proof of reserve, of course, if I've implemented proof of reserve. But with that cap in mind, if it's 1,000, Tamara can go and mint 5 times 200 or 1,000 at once, but I know that she's not able to mint 1 million or 2 million. I can later revoke that or change it if I, gain confidence that Tamara is managing the stablecoin in a sound manner. I can, push it up to 10,000, 100,000, and I can revoke it, at the stroke of a transaction. And I've just mentioned Tamara here, but it could be 15 people that I delegate the ability to mint with limits or not. And we can very much do the same for KYC. And if I go back to minting, we could specify that the contract will not allow a mint that is greater than 10% of circulating supply, maybe over an entire year. So we are actually conditioning inflation, which in the case of a stable coin may not make sense, but we could, put rules and regulations into the smart contract to say this stable coin will not grow in circulating supply by more than X% per year. All of those things are possible thanks to smart contracts, but they do not denigrate the efficiency of the native token because you don't mint every, or 1,000 times a second. That's a kind of one-off management activity. And then you transfer tokens to users, and it's the users who are in the fast lane, as I said, who need a very high throughput and low transaction fees. So you can make the smart contracts as complex as you need them to be to meet your regulatory requirements, and let the users enjoy the full efficiency of the native tokens.
Okay. Yeah, really, really interesting. Yeah. We have one here. It's a kind of more general. Could you discuss, the potential impact of Stablecoin Studio on cross-border payment systems?
So again, great question. So we did do a proof of concept with 3 banks in Asia about this time last year, if I remember correctly, where each of the banks had deployed Stablecoin Studio. This was a proof of concept. Don't read into this that they are going live with this just yet. But they had each deployed their own stablecoin for their end users. And as a consortium, they deployed a smart contract on the Hedera network that used, in the case of the proof of concept, another stablecoin on the Hedera network, which is a native token, and that's Circle's USDC. On Hedera is not deployed as a smart contract, but it is deployed as a native token. And the consortium smart contract, if you want, was provided with exchange rates and had access to liquidity pools that were managed entirely by the individual banks in such a way that I could deposit one currency into this consortium smart contract and have that currency converted to its equivalent in US dollars or USDC. and the same USDC then converted into the target currency for another bank, and the settlement of the so my deposit was made in my local stablecoin. The deposit to whoever I was sending was made in their local stablecoin, but the banks were exchanging US dollars at the appropriate exchange rates in order to realize and settle the value exchange between themselves in real time. So we were trying to essentially replicate what happens in traditional finance with every bank holding different pools of currencies in different countries, but trying to avoid the having to store large amounts of liquidity in lots of different currencies, in lots of different correspondent banks, by having this central orchestrator, if you want, that leveraged USDC. It could be any other global stablecoin to perform the value exchange between the banks. And yeah, it was received very positively by the banks. They're clearly working through their own regulatory hurdles when it comes to stablecoin adoption. But as I said, I think one of the positives out of this proof of concept was that it didn't disrupt the way the banks were operating. It didn't fundamentally change what they did. It just introduced operational efficiency, and none of it was dependent on DeFi protocols or volatility of tokens, which we see sometimes in some cross-border implementations today, where the solution is deeply volatile because of the intermediaries that get involved.
Cool. Yeah, we have here. Yeah, it's a kind of follow-up because you just mentioned this integration globally. But could you share examples of early adopters of the platform and their success stories with Stablecoin Studio? So I think your last slide showed some examples of the companies. So maybe you can give a bit more of detail.
So I guess it's been a year and 3 months, just under a year and a half since we launched Stablecoin Studio and made it available to the public at large. There is definitely a stablecoin issuing in Australia. I think they've gone live, or they're going live very soon, and they're using Stablecoin Studio. There are others, one in the Philippines. There's one project looking at remittance across Africa. There's a project in the Caribbean. Not all of those are live yet. I mean, I'm sure you understand the complexities in issuing a stablecoin are less about the technology and more about regulatory clarity, which we're still, fighting in many ways across different jurisdictions. There are projects building, but I can only point to one in Australia that is live or very close to being live. Another one in the Philippines, which was announced recently, which is a consortium of banks that got together to issue a single stablecoin for the Philippines, which is a novel concept. I think we've so far seen mostly banks issuing their own stablecoins, but this is multiple banks getting together to issue one retail-facing stablecoin. So I'd say early days yet. We've also had conversations around Stablecoin Studio with stablecoin as a service provider such as Braille, Braille.xyz. They now support the Hedera network, but they already had all of their infrastructure to manage stablecoins. So they discovered Hedera through Stablecoin Studio, but ended up, leveraging less of Stablecoin Studio than than we provided because they had existing infrastructure. But it was still a foot in the door in many ways to have that conversation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the next one. How does the data compare to competitors such as Hadron by Tether?
Competitors such as?
Hadron?
I don't think that name is unknown to me, so I might struggle to compare.
Yeah, maybe the person, please give us more detail on the chat box so you can elaborate a bit more about it. Yeah, we are approaching the end, so yeah, in the meantime, would you like to give your closing remarks, Greg?
Yeah, with pleasure. I mean, like I said, I really look forward to a time when stablecoins are not just for DeFi. There's a lot of maybe the a lot was said recently about the amount of volume supported by stablecoins today being in excess of that of Visa. And when we look at the details, what we see is that the number of transactions compared to Visa is far lower, which indicates to me that we have few high-value transactions in stablecoins versus the Visa network that is processing, many, many millions, billions of transactions of lower value. And I'm looking forward to a time when we're competing head to head with maybe some of the more traditional payment rails, not on volume, but on quantity of transactions and lower value transactions, which is what stablecoins can support and be very efficient. You may have seen a post on X about the cost of printing or minting a 1 cent coin in the US, actually costing 3 cents. To the US Treasury. And one of our council members, pointed out that you can transfer 1 cent on the Hedera network for 1/100th or 1,000th, I forget, of a US dollar cent. So this is far, far cheaper, far more efficient than minting 1 cent coins. So I'm really, really looking forward to stablecoin usage going beyond DeFi into more day-to-day activities, higher volumes of transactions than we're seeing today, lower value of transactions than we're seeing today. We have, of course, positive moves in Europe with MiCA when it comes to regulations. I'm hoping that the regulations loosen up or become clearer in the rest of the world so that stablecoin issuers can issue their stablecoins without fear of retribution, so that they can be beneficial to not just DeFi traders, but to those who want to send money across to their loved ones, friends and family across borders, and to finally get to a point where this technology is benefiting virtually everyone on the planet, not just a few today.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. We don't have any other questions, so yeah, I'd like to thank you for this super interesting discussion. And also thank you the audience who
Yes, thank you very much.
participate actively. And if you enjoy this content, so please like this video and share it with your network. And if you want to know more about the next DEA event and also the Digital Euro Conference that will take place in March this year, so please visit the DEA website. We are always post about our events and share this with our community. See you at the next episode of the DEA Tech Tuesday. Thank